Welcome to Cybersecurity Sense, a weekly podcast providing updates and insight into the latest in cybersecurity. Brought to you by LBMC Information Security. Now, here's your host.
Hi, I'm Bill Dean, Senior Manager here at LBMC Information Security, and we are still at the IIA seminar that LBMC Security is putting on here in Knoxville. Really appreciate you joining us for all of these podcasts. The last podcast today is actually going to be with one of our most senior shareholders, Mr. Mark Fulford, that has been here 25 years. Yes, he's been in the same job for 25 years.
Well, not exactly the same job for 25 years, but I have been here for 25 years, and I think that just means I'm older than everybody else at this point.
At the same company for 25 years. You should be very proud of that.
Yes, at the same company for 25 years.
And I'm also proud to say Mr. Fulford here actually pretty much started our information security practice here. So for that, I'm grateful because now I have a job. So earlier today, you had a real good presentation on risky business, talking about risk assessments. Everyone knows I'm a real technical guy, but with all of these talks, I like to sit in and listen on them because I learn. It helps me to relate better to my clients when it's something that's not as technical.
Well, right back at you. We like to learn from you technical guys as well. So,
well, then I guess it's a pretty good relationship between all of us. All right. So, a couple of questions that I was wondering. So you spoke about, risk management this morning. Why is that such a relevant topic? There's some obvious answers to that, but what's your take on that?
Well, if you think about it, Bill, every business, I don't care what vertical you're in, whether you're in government, whether you're in healthcare, whether you are even a mom and pop that accepts credit cards, we deal with sensitive information, and all of us have decisions to make about risk in our business, and whether that's a cost benefit associated with a particular type of security control, or just what we would usually consider risk management in terms of information security. And beyond that, if you look at all of the standards that people are using today around information security control frameworks, and most of the regulatory requirements, they all have some type of mandate for information security risk management and risk assessment in particular as part of that risk management. So, yeah, it's definitely relevant today, and we all face it. We all do it, whether we know it or not. And I guess the message today is, hey, let's get more intentional about this, and let's make sure we're doing it well.
And so you had mentioned, automating the process. It seems like to be a very manual process, spreadsheets and, things that don't seem to be very efficient. Expand on ways that automation can help in this process to make it a little less painful.
Sure, Bill. So, over the years, as we have been doing risk assessment type of work around information security, I know we've done it for hundreds and many hundreds of customers, if not thousands at this point. And what we see is that many of these customers or companies, even the very large ones, are still using spreadsheets to accomplish their risk assessments. And, spreadsheets are inherently inefficient. They're, especially as an organization becomes larger and more complex, they become a less effective tool at that point. And, beyond that, spreadsheets are also insecure. They lack the routing and tracking features that you would have in an automated type of tool. And this lack of functionality is really what I think keeps people from moving beyond assessment and into true risk management, which is the ultimate outcome that you're hoping to have from that assessment, because there's no way to kind of catalog all of these things that are bubbling up for remediation and then make sure that people are actually doing what they're supposed to, which is fixing the things that come up in these risk assessments. And that's the purpose of it, is to move from just assessment to management. So if you can find a good tool to automate that, we think it really helps you move the ball down the field. And to that degree, that's the reason that LBMC developed a risk assessment tool. BALLAST helps you automate that and provides a platform that really lets you move beyond just assessing and move to true risk management with remediation tracking and due dates and follow-ups and all that sort of thing.
Oh, that's great. So, what are the most important things you had as takeaways for the attendees here today and each time that you give this type of talk to an audience?
Sure. So I guess many times those of us who are IT security and audit professionals kind of get tunnel vision, and we think, in very black and white terms. We look at a framework and you either are or you're not doing something that framework would mandate related to information security. What we're suggesting is people need to look beyond that and think about the risk to the business and understand your particular organization's risk culture and risk tolerance. So that's kind of point number one, is understand what's important to your organization. Number two, consider more targeted assessments. We see a lot of organizations that try and eat the elephant, if you will, looking at an enterprise-wide risk assessment. And while sometimes that's appropriate, oftentimes you can get a lot more bang for your buck if you're more targeted with your assessments, narrowing the scope, understanding that you want to look at some very high-value assets and concentrate on those first. So then third, don't just do a gap assessment against your favorite control framework. There are certainly places for control frameworks within the risk assessment, ecosystem, and it's an important way to understand what your vulnerabilities are. But you need to start with what can go wrong here, and what do we care about, and what are the nature of the threats that might impact our business. That's where you start, and then you move to controls and think about likelihood and impact and all those other things we talk about risk management. Then we need to look for ways to automate, as we just talked about, streamline the process, which will also bring more consistency year over year as you're evaluating the effectiveness of your program. And then finally, don't just stop at the assessment phase. We find a lot of times organizations will do a risk assessment and it becomes what we call shelfware. So it just sits there for the next cycle to the next time the auditors come through, and you end up with the same findings and recommendations year over year, and you're really not making any progress in reducing your risk, and you're not making any progress in maturing your security program. So those were the takeaways that we hope the audience would leave with today, and that was the focus of our discussion.
Yeah, and the questions that were being asked seemed to revolve around a lot around that. So thank you so much for the information, Mark. This will be the last podcast from the IIA seminar that we're doing here in Knoxville today. As always, if you have a topic that you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me at bdean@lbmc.com. And to learn more about us and the services that we can provide for you, please visit lbmcinformationsecurity.com. Thank you.